Hello, and welcome to our webinar on global decoupling risks, planning for the future of US-EU-China relations. My name is Martina Balzajeva, and I'm Chief Research Officer at FrontierView. We have a star group of experts here with us today to share a very nuanced perspective on the topic and to help inform conversations that we know many organizations are having about this issue. For those of you who are new to Oxford Analytica and FrontierView, I'll give you a very quick introduction, and then we'll get started. Understanding what's happening across regions and staying on top of countries' legislation and regulations, while at the same time assessing the complex economic and business implications, is crucial to the success of global organizations today. In an increasingly complex and unpredictable global environment, organizations need a powerful combination of purpose-built market intelligence solutions to inform and power critical decisions and workflows. Oxford Analytica and FrontierView are the leading geopolitical, macroeconomic, and industry intelligence solutions, helping you to navigate complex markets and to inform your critical decisions. With in-house analysts leveraging a global network, and you get a chance to see that on display today, robust methodologies and data forecasts, and a dedicated focus on stakeholder collaboration, we deliver trusted insights and seasoned judgments on the issues that matter. On the agenda today, we have about 40 minutes of conversation with our panel of experts, followed by Q&A with those of you in the audience who are able to join us. If you wanted to ask a question throughout, if you hear something that sparks a thought or an idea, please drop us a note in the chat function. You can message me, Martina Bozijeva, or you can message FrontierView Webinars, and we'll add the question to the queue for the Q&A session at the end of the conversation. We'll also be asking a couple of polling questions from all of you, our audience, to get your perspective and opinion on this topic as we go along. These are anonymized questions, but I think it will be interesting to see the perspective from those of us joining the conversation today. Now, first, I'd like to introduce our panel for the discussion today. Joining us is really, as I said, a star group of individuals from across the world and from across different perspectives geographically and geopolitically. We have Benjamin Charlton, who is a senior analyst for Asia Pacific at Oxford Analytica. Hi, Benjamin. Thank you for joining us today. We have Paul Maidman, who is editor of Oxford Analytica's Family Office Brief, with a huge amount of experience and I think a very interesting perspective bringing into today's conversation. Hi, Paul. Thank you for joining us. We have Mark McElhenney, who is our Director for Europe Research here at FrontierView, Elizabeth Rust, who is our Global Economics lead and has a focus on the US. Hi, Elizabeth. And from Singapore, we're joined by Adam Jarzik, who is our Head of Asia Pacific Research and China expert. So I think we'll have a couple of different China perspectives and certainly a point of view from a policy perspective on the US and on the Europe side as well. Now with that, thank you to those of you who have just joined us. We will make it work right away. So we're about to launch two very brief polling questions. We wanted to see the perspective of the audience, and then we'll jump right into the conversation and share the perspective of our experts today. So if we can get the first polling question launched. As I mentioned, these are anonymized. So if you don't mind giving the answer that best represents your answer, you'll be able to see the results right away. First, 5 years from now, where do you expect the relationship between China and the West to be? Do you think it might be improved from today with decoupling specifically in national security? No change? Much worse on policy and security, but still okay from a business perspective? Or do you expect that there might be substantial decoupling in all areas, including business, politics, and security? Please share your best guess, your opinion. We'll give everybody a minute to answer the poll, and we'll immediately be able to see the answer to the question. And of course, this is the million-dollar question that we're going to try to answer today, particularly when we look at that 5-year time horizon. Okay, let's take a look at the results, and then we'll ask our second question. Okay, so the audience has a pretty strong consensus. You all seem to expect that politics and security, yes, will deteriorate over the next 5 years, but business relations are going to remain relatively strong still. And actually, a third of the audience expects substantial decoupling in all areas. So a little bit of a gloomy perspective here, but I'm sure there a lot of areas where it is justified. So that's why we're here today, to discuss what that looks like and how much of a risk is there on business, in addition to the security area. Let's launch our second question and see what the rest of the group thinks about how this relationship is likely to evolve. So if we focus just on the business arena for just a minute, for Western multinational companies in China, it could be American, could be European, could be Japanese, etc. Which of these risks should be a significant concern in the next 5 years? Perhaps you can highlight the risk that you think is the biggest risk that multinational companies are facing. Is it about potentially being at risk of not even being able to sell products in China? Is it more on the manufacturing side, you think, the risk? Perhaps it's more about being able to make new investments and expand the business. Do you think companies should be concerned about the risk of forced divestment from China, like what we've seen with Russia and Ukraine? Or is it more about the competitive disadvantage that Western companies might be under? Of these risks, which one do you think should be the most important one in the next 5 years? Okay, let's see the results and then we'll launch into our conversation. Okay, so interesting results also. Yes, the competitive risk definitely is top of mind. Clear disadvantage for Western companies considering some, especially the national security priorities in certain areas for the Chinese government. But interestingly, I'm seeing concerns across the entire spectrum of potential decoupling risks and what that could mean from a business perspective. Wonderful. We can close the results now. Thank you very much, everybody, for answering and providing your perspective. Now it's time for us to share ours. And with that, I wanted to start with sort of the fundamental question that we'll try to answer, and then we'll expand on that and look at some of the nuances around it. How do we expect the relationship between China and the US and China and the EU to evolve in the next 3 to 5 years, beyond where it is today? And how do Washington, Beijing, and Brussels see this respectively? Adam and Benjamin, do you mind sharing your point of view on the China side before we go west?
Certainly. So if we take a step back and we consider what's going on, some aspects of Beijing's relationships with Washington and Brussels are going to be shaped by the outcomes of upcoming power transitions. The degree that Xi Jinping is able to consolidate power at the next party Congress, who wins the next US presidential election, etc. However, the general trajectory of China's changing relationships with Western countries is clear. Relations are set to deteriorate over the next 3 to 5 years. Xi seems to have come to believe that the rise of China and the decline of the West are both inevitable. So he's no longer sticking to Deng Xiaoping's maxim to hide your strength and bide your time. Instead, he's beginning to demand the respect that he feels China is due and push back against statements and structures that he sees constraining his options. To use a framework from Brookings, China's moving from an authority-seeking stakeholder to an external innovator. In other words, China's no longer willing to just join existing institutions and seek greater voice through redistributing decision-making authority. Instead, increasingly, it wants to build new institutions that offer alternative modes of cooperation and promote alternative rules and norms relative to the current international system. We saw this in Beijing's response to US Secretary of State Blinken's recent speech outlining America's China policy. Quote, what the US has constantly vowed to preserve is a so-called international order designed to serve the US's own interests and perpetuate its hegemony. We don't just see it in quotes and responses, we see it as well in actions. In China's Belt and Road Initiative, its Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, and its Global Security Initiative. Under Xi, China is becoming more assertive, more confident in its ability to pave its own way, and less interested in actively integrating into the existing international system. So while Beijing will continue to engage with Washington and Brussels, it will do so increasingly on its own terms, even if it means putting these relationships under strain.
Hi, my name is Krista Reganey, and I'm Marketing Director here at FrontierView. I'd like to thank you for watching a segment of this webinar. If you'd like access to the full video and our latest insights, data, and research, sign up for a free trial with us today. Simply scan the QR code on the screen.